Okay, good morning, participants. I think today people are a little delayed. It might be a little bit of pre-Diwali mood. So we will start, and then I hope that gradually people will, attend. So again, good morning, and wish you all a very happy Diwali. Just before that, we will have the last, webinar session for this particular course, and after that, as I said, that it would be a more focused discussion, probably on Skype, telephone, email exchanges, based on the topics you have selected, and some of you have already proposed the topics, but most of you have not proposed the topic. I would request you to propose the topic because actually it will take a lot of time to complete these assignments. So I'm little worried that whether we can really complete the assignments in time. Now, before I get into the session, let me see that who has sent the topic. So I think I got the first mail from Mrs. Lakshmi Pillai. She is from ICRISAT. And Ms. Lakshmi, actually, you have proposed some wonderful ideas. I think those are very interesting ideas. And I know ICRISAT very well. But one thing that, as I know ICRISAT very well, and I know that, I don't know if you are today there, if I will give a written reply to that also, but just for the sake of the groups, the discussion with the group, I think that will actually also give you some kind of indication that what kind of work you should be taking. The ICRISAT, as I would say that ICRISAT is working with a lot of companies, I would love to see that you are also taking up on assignment what you are doing or you have already done with a particular business. I know that you have worked with a few corporates with on water and soil conservation and these kind of projects. So if you can see that what kind of programs, if you can make a case study on that, what kind of impact you have created, what is you think in long term ROI, return on of investment to that company, what is the impact you have created or you were expecting to create to the company and to the community as a specialist organization, as you are partnering with the company. So those are the things probably would be also interesting. So what I'm saying is that I really like the ideas what we have proposed, but at the same time, I would prefer to have at least one assignment which is relevant for corporate social responsibility, because as you know, this whole course is on corporate social responsibility. Then let me see who else has sent. I think Mr. Navneet Shetty and Mr. Shailendra Swal, they have proposed again a very brilliant idea. This is driving towards sustainability. What they propose that because of the increased individual usage of vehicles in Qatar, and because of different reasons, people are actually the usage of individual use of vehicles is increasing in Qatar because of low fuel cost and many other reasons. So what they think that they as a company, they will actually probably launch an initiative which will actually they are planning to start with schools to educate children for safe driving, educate children that they should use more public vehicle, about environment, how they can actually save environment and not to use vehicles irresponsibly on the roads of Qatar. So I think that's an excellent proposal. What I would say is that as an assignment you need to be clear what you can do. So I would say that as an assignment, what you can do is you can actually develop a nice program design, where you will have a little bit of situation analysis. You will have to see that, what are the kind of program planning you will be doing. As I have given, we have discussed about what are the stages of program planning, what are the elements of program planning. So, and then, you get into a little bit of budgeting of that program and activity schedule. So by the end of, through the assignment, what you can do is that at least you can work on the design of the program in a detailed manner. So next communication I received from Mr. Winston. Yesterday I have been trying to actually send a response to you, but somehow it was not going out of my mailbox. I don't know, some problem was there. Mr. Winston, Mr. Sagar Datta, Ms. Madhu, they all have proposed to do CSR policy. So I see a kind of common interest of working on CSR policy. I think this is excellent. I'm really, excited to see that you want to really do something and which is useful at this point of time for your business, for your company. Only one thing I would like to explain, that when you are doing CSR policy is one of the document made out of many exercises, right? So before, if in particular case of this particular this Companies Act, if you see that before CSR policy, drafting a CSR policy, what you should do is that you will have to have that entire program planning in place, your partnership policy in place, your budget would be in place, what would be your monitoring and evaluation system, that would be in place. Then, what you are doing is a brief of all these things in your CSR policy. Your management structure and system is in place, governance structure and system. So that what I'm saying is that before doing CSR policy, please remember that drafting CSR policy itself is not the exercise. The entire exercise is actually from program planning, so that you need to know all the programs, how much money you would be allocating for which program, so that when you are saying that, okay, we'll be doing, say, for example, a quality education program, and for that probably we'll be giving some, 10 lakhs rupees. Then you need to know that, what is the quality education program, what are the components of that, what is the budget of that quality education program, and why you have said 10 lakhs out of your 10 crore budget, why not it is 15 lakhs. Then only actually you can put it on your policy, because once the policy is developed, then the stage, as we will discuss today, that the stage is that the CSR committee will place it on the board will approve that, and once it is approved, it is in public domain, and that would be a main tool for public scrutiny and also your tracking mechanism. So that I would say that, it is excellent to see that you are doing a policy document. But when we look at the policy document, we'll have to see that what are the supporting exercises you have done, like the program planning, the budgetary planning, what kind of partnership management system you will have, all kind of things. Today we'll discuss on that in more detail. So that, I would be personally happy to actually break it in 2 assignments. A policy formulation, because to do the policy formulation, you need to do a program planning, entire program planning. So that itself is a huge exercise. And then if you are drafting the policy, that I would consider as a second exercise. So if you are doing a policy framework, I would be happy to consider it as 2 assignments together. But I need to see all these exercises are done in a proper manner. Probably you have already done, you will have to little bit of restructure, reorganize things, that is fine with me, but I need to see that that is already done. It is not the program, the policy formulation is not done sitting in a boardroom without doing all these fundamental exercises. So that is my view, and as I said that it is going to be quite a bit of extensive exercise. I would be happy to provide you all kinds of support and guidance within my limitations. But once you do it, and also the process is so important for policy development, as you can understand, So once you are doing it, do it in a proper manner. Mr. Sagar Datta, he has also proposed for policy development, and also he has proposed for, I think, an assessment of NGO, if I remember correctly. So, I mean, welcome Mr. Datta to do both, but as I said that if you do policy formulation, that itself is a huge exercise, and, be little realistic to plan your assignment. I personally would actually consider a policy development, if it is done in the manner I was saying, as two exercises. So, okay. So that is all we have received till now, and as I said, that the concern is that I didn't receive the assignment plan from other participants. So I would request you to send it as soon as possible, because what we will do is that we'll freeze it within the within this week, and in the next week itself we'll see, because the participants who are planning to work on policy formulation, probably we can create a small group with these participants, and we can have separate Skype session with that group. So that kind of planning we will have to do now, how to take it forward. Okay, so with that, we'll start today's session. Let me see, if we have some more participants today. Okay, still attendance is not very good today. I think this is because of pre-Diwali, mood. Okay, and also today is another day. I don't know, 21st October. If you have noticed that today is actually a day for addressing iodine deficiency in India. So we'll have to, probably now look at all these things and see that from your business, have you done anything? Yeah, no, some of the questions I'm getting, actually quickly I will answer that, then I will start that it is based on the assignment, so I don't want to get into the assignment again after this today. Mr. Sagar Datta is saying that, yeah, Mr. Datta, actually you were supposed to do do 2 assignments. Why I'm saying that, only if you can give, because the policy by, itself, policy formulation itself is such a big assignment. Because you'll have to do the program planning within that. If you are actually through the partners you are planning to implement your program, then actually you'll have to do your partnership assessment, NGO assessment also in that. Ideally that should be the scenario. Then only you can actually mention all the NGO's name and other things in your policy document. So that is why I'm saying that it's actually a huge assignment. So if you do it, I would say that you have already done a lot of other exercises also. So that is why I'm happy to consider policy formulation as 2 assignments. Mr. Anil Gupta is saying, please provide the list of topics of assignments. I will actually provide the list of assignments, the indicative list. Definitely, you will have to propose your, topic. I don't want to actually give you exactly the topic. You should see that, what is your interest, what is the relevance for your business, and also try to see that what you want to learn actually, so that accordingly you will have to propose. So with that, okay, let us quickly go to today's session. So today what we will be discussing is CSR policy formulation. Now, as I said that CSR policy formulation is more of the process is really, really important. and the matrix and other things is not that difficult actually, but to get the content in the matrix, how do you actually reach there, is really a very tough process to do. Then we'll discuss a little bit of partnership building, partnership development, especially with NGOs, government, and what are the advantages, disadvantages of different kind of partnership, what are the different kind of partnerships, and how to do broadly, due diligence of NGOs, what are the elements you need to look at, that we need to understand, and then briefly we'll discuss the leftover of last session, that is budgetary planning. Okay, now for CSR policy formulation, as I said, we have discussed this before, that it is not an exercise what you can do in a boardroom, because what happens in most of the cases, if you look at the policies of that particular company, and if you see that what kind of consensus they have developed within the company, even if it is not a consensus, what kind of at least the common minimum understanding on a particular vision they have created within the company, that's really rare to see a good consensus or common understanding. So the main challenge, because this is also management wise, organizational politics wise, stakeholder dynamics wise, it is so important that you initiate a process that is more inclusive, that actually gives scope to the important stakeholders to take part in, and then out of that you evolve that policy framework. Otherwise what happens is that today you are there with that company, you will develop some kind of policy, tomorrow you might actually change your job, you will go somewhere, or your boss will go somewhere else, and the whole organization's vision will go with that person or with you, so that it becomes end of the day a personal vision imposed on the company, imposed on the business, because of some of the powerful people like you, some of the powerful people who are sitting in the board, they have their vision and the whole company try to implement that vision. So I explained that to you before also, that it is really, if you really want to do good for that business and make them to more socially responsible, then you'll have to go through this difficult way. You will have to, there is no other easy way. So you will have to develop those opportunities to engage different kind of stakeholders and evolve a shared vision. Based on that, you develop the policy. Again, as I said, that in my long experience, in most of the cases, most of the professionals think that these are all very theoretical. Okay, who cares what is shared vision or not? This is the best thing to do with the company. Now the thing is that today you think this is the best thing to do. Somebody else will not think this is the best thing to do, and the perspectives of people will differ. The community perspective is different. Stakeholders, shareholders perspective is different. So I would say that please try to engage people in the process. And how do you engage people? That is the most difficult thing to do. Definitely, as I said before also, that you cannot get 100 people or 1,000 people in a boardroom and discuss together and come up with a strategy or policy. You will have to devise a system where actually people can reflect on and say that what do they think. And through that, what you can do is we talk about employees engagement, we talk about employee engagement, we talk about employee volunteering, with all these kind of things. So that does not happen at project level. That starts at actually the planning level, the policy level. So if you can engage them from the beginning, you see that the kind of ownership you can create, the kind of excitement you create, and the value you can create with all the stakeholders, including your employees. One thing is very pertinent to say here is a company who has created a social value beyond their financial objectives, the employees actually gain a much better belongingness in those companies, and that is a proven fact. That it is not only the business, the company start becoming proud of that, being in the team, in that group, because that particular company has a different social worldview, and they have something more than the business to do, some more value, greater value they are creating. So those companies are always actually, you see that the employees retention level is much higher, motivation level is much higher, and this is proven, as I said, through different researches, and in my experience also, in many cases we have actually created that kind of atmosphere, and I have seen that that has actually solved their high attrition problem. So with that, again, very quickly, we just see that, before getting into your policy level, what you need to do is that these are the 4 stages we had discussed before, just to refresh your mind: sensitization, assessment, synthesization, and institutionalization. These are the phases you will have to go through to develop your policy also, so that you will have to sensitize people, you will have to sensitize the key stakeholders, then you will have to assess the present situation, what exactly is happening. There might be some sporadic things are happening, how do you consolidate that, what are the impacts of that, how much money is going there, what is the process. All these assessments, as I said, in this, you go through this particular thing, you will get a roadmap for that, you go do that assessment, then you synthesize, then you actually start doing the plan based on your assessment, based on, and then you engage also people, because you have already sensitized people. That's the synthesization process. At this place, you are actually at this particular phase, you are drafting your policy, you are engaging people in that particular exercise. And in the 4th stage, the institutionalization phase, what you are doing is that, one is that you are actually engaging, at board level, at the CSR committee and the board level, and trying to see that how do you mainstream this particular policy with a business policy. Now, what happens is that, in most of the cases, and as it is suggested, I know what I really don't support in our the Companies Act, that it is a separate document, but at the same time, it could be actually integrated in the business document itself, business policy itself. However, for now, I think, that's probably a little bit of ambitious goal at this point of time. But at the same time, how do you institutionalize the whole policy document at a governance level? That is something, you really have to take it to. Now, we also discussed this CSR policy framework. So, in that CSR policy framework, if you see that the kind of sequence or the kind of progression, what we had said is that you had a goal or vision, the broad picture, what you want to achieve, that might not happen, in fact, in your lifetime. You are setting some objectives. These objectives actually will happen in your project time or program time or your lifetime. Then accordingly, we are formulating the strategies, planning interventions, planning resources. Then you are getting into implementation, evaluation, follow-up, and it's a continuous process. So that, at this point of time, if you are planning to do your policy framework, then, you will have to go up to that intervention planning and the resource planning level. Then you can put it to the policy document. Now, the exercises we discussed, the PEST exercise, SWOT, competitive analysis, competitor analysis, CNA, community need assessment, stakeholder expectation mapping, all these kind of exercises you will have to do. Because, say, today, how do we decide that what are the programs my company will do? Is it only the community need? Is it because the kind of expertise, the kind of insight you have in your the natural expertise and insight you have within the company? is that, you know, have you considered the expectation of other stakeholders like the investors and other things? Have you considered what are the risk elements there in the company, in the factory? Have you considered what are the kind of NGOs, strong NGOs are there within that particular community? What are the priorities of programs? So there are a lot of factors to really consider before we decide on a policy framework. So that, you know, to reach that level of understanding, you will have to do all these exercises. And then we discussed about log frame analysis and problem tree. So once we decide on, okay, we want to work on education sector. Now in education, you know, probably we found that education quality, learning level of these children are not good in this particular area, and that is aligned, particular the particular issue is aligned with, you know, our expectations, stakeholder expectation, our, you know, core value of the company, etc., etc. Then we'll have to get into more in-depth analysis of that particular issue and try to see, okay, education, but what to do in education, you know, how to address this problem. Probably we found, okay, quality of education, learning level is low in that particular community. Now, what are the root causes of that, and accordingly you will have to develop your interventions in education. Once you do that, then only you can actually allocate your budget. Is it that teachers training is the key thing? Is it that they don't have even infrastructure? Is it that they need teaching learning material? Is it that they need a different kind of pedagogical you know, approach? So what exactly is your analysis for what the manifestation is, that low learning level of children? But what is exactly is the reason, and what are the activities you plan to do that? So what I'm saying, these are all program planning elements, so that once, you know, if you will get into the matrix of policy formulation, policy matrix, if you really want to, you know, develop the content, you see that you will have to have clarity, you will have to have exact information. These are the feeder for the policy document. So that, as I said, that when you are doing policy formulation, you will have to do a lot of exercises, number of exercises. Then only you are clear that what exactly to be done in a particular company and put it in the policy. Please remember that this policy document is a public document, so that it is a main tool for public scrutiny. It is a main tool for government scrutiny. If you are actually saying that we have spent 2% of our net profit, then they will have to, you know, on what basis you have spent and all these things, that should be reflected on the policy document. Again, you know, going back to another thing, because why I'm repeating all these things and trying to actually remind you about all these discussions we had, because this will culminate to your policy formulation. You know, the policy formulation is not actually a separate, detached, isolated exercise. It is actually a culmination of your situation analysis. It is also a culmination of your stakeholder expectation mapping. It is also a product of your program planning, etc., etc. Now we discussed that you will have to, even when you are developing policy formulation, you are doing the policy formulation, you will definitely have to refer the global norms and standards. You will have to develop the national norms and standards. You have to refer to the national norms and standards, so that it is relevant for you know, both at national and the global level. Now, why I am actually separating these two is the global framework is little bit of it is much more broader than the policy framework at national level, what is expected by the Companies Act. So that if you want to be, you know, relevant for the global market, your company wants to be relevant for the global market, you will have to not only take care of the national norms and standards, you will have to take care of the global norms and standards. Now, definitely, you know, we discussed about the external factors and internal factors and your value and purpose of your particular company. Then try to see that what should be the policy framework. So, you know, if I do a policy framework, if I develop a policy framework for a company, then actually in my I would develop a document where I would have all these analysis, like what is the market condition for this particular company, what are the regulatory environment, what is the political environment, what is the social condition, all these elements would be there, analysis would be there. Then based on that I will propose a policy formulation. Practically how much you can do within this given time, that's a different aspect. But as a professional, if I say, go to a company who will engage me to develop their policy, then actually I'll have to do all these entire exercises, because otherwise what happens is that it becomes a very arbitrary wish list, what I think should be good for that company. So it should be based on assessment, analysis, it should be logical, and it should be scientific. So that is why these things are really required. And how do I do that? Definitely I will engage stakeholders, I will do the consultation with the stakeholders within your company, the managers, the employees, the board, the investors, and gradually do all these assessments and try to see what exactly would be the policy framework. Now, we discussed all these things. I just wanted to remind you again about this, because that will constitute your policy framework. Now, let us look at a global, framework. Ideal policy framework for CSR or business responsibility. How does it look like? In that, if you pick up one document, a good document of a good company who has developed and published their policy framework. So these are the information are mandatory at a global level, in different form, different presentation, but you will see these elements are there. What? The company information. Now, when you are actually developing a policy, you need to introduce your company in a proper manner. The general information, under that you will have to give geographic information, size of company, who owns the company, who are the shareholders. Now, see, as it is a separate policy document what you are creating, the policy document by itself should be a complete document. So it should be a standalone document, so that if you pick up this document, you understand everything. You don't have to, refer another 10 documents to understand the company and then actually refer to your CSR policy. So that it should be a standalone complete document. Second thing, what you need to do is that you need to talk about, I am talking about a global framework. I know I will get into the national framework a little later, but these are the elements are really important if you want to do it properly. Now, the economic impact of that company. What is the turnover of sales, number of employees, market share, profit? Definitely you will have to declare. Even in the national policy also you will have to declare what is your profit for last three years and all. The mission statement, company objectives linked to CSR, managing director or CEO statement. Definitely, as I said, that the mission or the vision, that has to be actually stated, that what is my social vision? How do I envisage that big picture of the social change that that ideal world we want to create through our social initiatives. Value list, the company's value. So what kind of value system you have? What do you believe is that you believe in probably gender equity, you believe in probably inclusive growth. What are the values your company has? Do you believe in value creation or do you believe in profit? Yeah, so those are the things comes in the value. And then stakeholder consultation, list who the main stakeholders are on whom you have impacted. Okay. Then relationship with non-governmental organizations. So these are, as I said, that these are the global standards, so that if you pick up a good document at a global level, they will definitely do a stakeholder mapping and say that these are my stakeholders, these are my relationship with the stakeholders, and then declare their policy within that. And they will say that what are the kind of expectations the stakeholders have, then accordingly they will develop their policy framework. And definitely, again, I mean, this policy is not an annual document. This is actually for the life span of a particular business, so that it is worth invest in developing that particular document. Now you will have to declare about the workplace, because as I say, as you have realized that the Companies Act is not talking about the workplace, it is talking about the external community. But at a global level, when you talk about business responsibility, responsible business, or CSR, there is a huge focus on the workplace itself. Because as I said that if you don't have a fair workplace within the company, as you know that there are global big movements, many companies are affected for that movement because they could not maintain that kind of workplace environment within that company. But unfortunately our Companies Act is not the focus is little different, so that, but at a global level, if you don't have this workplace statement, this section, then definitely people will be a little bit of suspicious about your company. So this is not a complete policy document. So it depends that whether you want to, because this would be in your public domain, so whether you want to really make it a global document which also accommodate the national elements, or you want to just for now probably focus on the national focus. In workplace section, what you will have to see the subsection, you see the different kind of subsection would be there: employees, equal opportunity, race, gender, age, disability, workforce profile. Many of these companies, global companies, will see that what is their policy for disabled people, what is their policy for HIV affected or infected people, what is their policy for, it might not be a big document, it might be some statements. What is their policy for, say, mentally ill patients? Yeah. So those are the very, very sensitive things at a global level, people are now considering, so that, what is your policy on that. One particular company I was working with, again, it's a huge company. It's one of the largest company in India. They wanted me to do something on the employees' health. It was much before, fortunately, the Companies Act. And the company was reluctant to develop a staff health policy. What is their position on staff health? So they have different measures, but they don't want to actually declare a policy. So you'll have to see the company's dynamics, you'll have to see the politics of the company, you'll have to see that, what kind of probably little bit of fear the company is having, because again, these are the disclosure, very, very important disclosures. Communication, training, personal development, communication with employees, pay and benefits, what kind of pay and benefits you are giving, workplace climate, employee handbook, industrial relations, HR management, child labor, forced labor. Do you have a stated position on child labor or forced labor? Other specifications or company issues, like, as I said that, this is such an important aspect. Say, we have discussed this issue number of times, that if you engage contract laborers, what are the minimum work condition you are creating through the contractor for the contract laborers. You are not doing that. Like, as I said, that unfortunately these are the things not covered in the Companies Act. But when we spend 2% of the money and not having, or having a kind of inhuman condition, work condition for the contract laborers, would we really say that confidently that we are a socially responsible business? Or just, 2%, spending 2% of your net profit will give you a license, to exploit to some extent. So then it has a declaration. There should be a section of on marketplace about your customers, customer satisfaction, customer retention, safety and quality, after sales, consumer education, suppliers and supply chain. Again, this is, as I said, that when you are talking about business responsibility, you are responsible for the entire value chain and lifespan of your product and services. So suppliers and supply chain, code of conduct, selection criteria, linked to CSR, like, what are the, say, selection criteria, who is supplying water to you? Yeah. Say, like, in some of the companies, what we said that, can you make your vendors, at least who are the suppliers of the CSR materials and other things. In fact, ideally it should be for all the vendors to sign some of the policies. Like, you make them to sign many policies, like, it might be conflict of interest or this, that. So, can they sign on a child protection policy, for example, that they will not engage any form of child labor in their business. Yeah. And once it is found that they are engaging the child labor in their business, the contract can be terminated. So those are the things. Now, if you go for a kind of global assessment of your business responsibility performance, then definitely they will go through all these elements and try to see that you have stated document, first of all, you have stated policy, first of all, and whether you are practicing that in your value chain or not. Now, support local suppliers, payment of bills on time, bribes and corruption, creating awareness, CSR. So these are all actually, very common elements at an international standard. Now, one part of this particular company, if you can, a particular document, as you can see, is the community. Now, about that community, what you are talking about: charity, sponsorship, donations, in-kind support, time resource assets, regeneration, economic impact, number of jobs, employee involvement, impact on society. So all these things, actually this is the part which is covered by the national framework. It is actually only on company and little bit of environment, which is on the next section. Again, in environment is not so much in detail in the national framework, but if you go by the international framework, then it would be, waste, recycling, waste generation, tons and kilos, hazardous waste policies. What are the waste management policy you have? Water usage, control programs, materials, types used, activities, recycled materials consumed, materials recycled, etc., health and safety, ISO, EMAS, training, communication to staff, transport, green transport plan, fuel reduction policy, car fleet, etc., etc. So these are all actually, if you see, so that, you are talking about your business. You are not talking about something separate or subsection of your business. You are talking about your entire business and trying to say that how would you make the entire business, be it your financial part, be it your HR part, be it your environment part, how you want to make your entire business socially and environmentally responsible. That is what is CSR framework and the policy framework, CSR policy framework at a global standard. So that you are not saying that, okay, I am doing something, my product is really bad, my clients are dissatisfied, my customers are dissatisfied, what I am doing is really hazardous for the environment. At the same time, I am socially responsible because 2% of my profit is paid. That is why it is about the entire business. It is like, my left hand is doing good job and right hand is doing bad job. I'm, blowing somebody's nose by right hand and giving, doing some charity by left hand. And so, there's a kind of contradiction, could be created within the company also. So that, you are spending 2%, at the same time, if you are not being responsible, if there is bribery, if your vendors are engaging child laborers in your supply chain, there are sexual harassments, there are exploitation or forced labors, exploitation of personnel, then definitely, how do we call ourselves a socially responsible business? That is the global lens I'm talking about. That is the lens through what the global community will look at your business. Now, if you look at the Companies Act elements, what are the things you will have to state in that? You will have to talk about governance, particularly you will have to talk about CSR governance, not the overall governance, right? you'll have to talk about, the constitution of CSR committee, who are those in the CSR committee, a little bit of profile of the CSR committee members, what are the governance process, how frequently they are meeting, how many meetings they are planning to have, and all this governance system and structure, you'll have to put it in the governance to describe the governance. Then you will have to talk about program management implementation strategy. How do you want to manage or implement your program? Is it that directly through your CSR department you want to do that? Is it that you have a foundation? Is it that you want to do through NGO partnership? Or probably a mix of all these three, or any two of these three will be applied for program management and implementation strategy. That means if you go back to my the previous discussion what I was having, that if you really want to state that, definitely you need to understand, you will have to have a good understanding of all these things. What would be your implementation strategy? Where is your program? Is there any NGO or not? Everything has to be first assessed. Then only you can state your the policy statement. Then partnership collaboration strategy. Again, partnership collaboration strategy, without assessing them, without having some kind of negotiation, without having some kind of agreement with them, at least a preliminary understanding with them, if it is not a formal agreement, how do you even talk about partnership collaboration strategy? You are talking about that for this particular program or education program or whatever program we want to, say, for example, collaborate with government. Now, you stated that without understanding that whether the government is interested to collaborate with you or not. Is there any good opportunity? What are the opportunities? There might be great opportunities. Without that, if you actually do that, and after declaring the policy, when it goes to the public domain, signed by your board and all, then we found that probably collaboration with the government is very, very difficult, or we said that we will not collaborate with the government. It is a great opportunity. So that means then you will have to do that background exercise. It is not just deciding in a boardroom. Geographic demographic targeting, that definitely you'll have to do. So based on you'll have to have a little bit of impact situation analysis, situation assessment rather, for that to understand the geographic condition. Sector-wise programs. Now, I just I remembered one instance actually. I think a few days back, I was visiting one of the company's site, and I found that they are working primarily in 4 panchayats, yeah, and they have quite a bit of budget. It was, I think, annual budget was for that particular 4 panchayats only. They had some 5 crore or so, excluding staff salary, excluding all the overheads and other things. Now, year after year, to spend 5 crores, and it looks like it will increase in the next year and later. Year after year, to spend 5 crore without a right kind of program in 5 panchayats is really difficult. I mean, then it would be a challenge to even spend your money. Now, whether you have that kind of idea, good idea to spend that money, yeah, and to create that kind of impact or return of investment. Second thing is that large enough area where you have that kind of to create that impact and to use that money in a proper manner. Or you should actually really enlarge or expand that sphere of your influence, and try to see that, okay, it is not only 4 panchayats. And then what is the selection criteria of these 4 panchayats? Is it just based on your land acquisition, or it is your impact zone? It is not only land, there are so many other impacts you are creating, direct, indirect impact you are creating. So how do you define what is your impact zone? So these are very, very important aspects to understand. Like for this particular company, I really see that it would be very difficult to spend the money if they don't redefine their impact zone, because in these four panchayats, they have been working for many, quite a few years. And every year the solution would be that, okay, I mean, I cannot do behavior change, communication, these are the soft things. These are, I cannot spend my money. So better to actually construct some of the infrastructure and spend the money. Yeah, that is the easiest way. So that is why I'm saying that these are so important aspect, so that, when we are stating that, before that we need to have a right kind of analysis, assessment, understanding to do that. Otherwise, it might create problem for you. So that geographic, demographic targeting, again, I mean, within that, what I found that there are some communities who are really, who deserve, good support. Those are tribal communities. Still, they are really excluded from the whole development, what is happening in the entire place. So, whether you can have a really focused target toward that and try to see what kind of inclusiveness you can bring in. Then sector-wise programs and activities. This is tricky, as I said. That sector-wise, a list of programs and activities, is it just not, again, I mean, how can you do it without having issue analysis, without having community need assessment, without having situation analysis, without having prioritization, without doing prioritization of the needs, and doing right kind of program planning? You cannot do this, because once you do this, that means you are declaring that these programs and activities you will be doing. So, before doing that, you will have to be sure that you have done all these exercises, and that, see, it is not that it is written on stone that, today these 5 activities I have said in terms of quality education I will do, that cannot be changed. I think, it can be changed, and it should be changed. You should be flexible. Because we work in a very unpredictable situation when we talk about community dynamics. But at least it should be a logical frame what you are putting forward. Now, project-wise budget allocation and budgetary management. Again, the problem is that if you don't understand the program, how many participants would be there. Say, let us say take a very simple example, like say you wanted to construct a school building. Okay, that's fine. You construct a school building. If you found that there is no school building in that place, or that school building is in bad shape, so you will want to renovate that school building. Now, definitely you will have to do that construction planning, right? You will have to get that civil plan, talk to the civil engineers, do a proper planning, and then understand what would be the estimate for this particular business, right? Otherwise, like that, any program you will have to do a proper estimation and budget. Then only you can put this number. Otherwise, later you will be in trouble. Then review and reporting system. What kind of monitoring mechanism you have, what kind of reviewing system you have, that you will have to say. It might be directly, what are the different layers, how you see, there are 3 layers of monitoring, in this particular case. Your board is monitoring, is the overall, has an overall responsibility to make sure that the programs are being implemented in the manner it is stated in the policy, and the budget is being spent in accordance to the act, and the way you have disclosed in the policy. Now, the second level, they will actually definitely have some kind of monitoring mechanism, some reporting mechanism from the CSR committee, right? Some briefing sessions. Now, the CSR committee will do the monitoring and evaluation. If it is with your trust, it might be to your CSR department, or whatever the mechanism you have developed. Now, if you have a trust, then again you will have a kind of layer of a monitoring mechanism with your NGO partners at the community level, so that you will have to see that what is the kind of multi-level monitoring mechanism. Definitely, if you ask your board members to come to the community level and do regular monitoring, because ultimately they will have to sign those papers, right? So you'll have to have a very strong mechanism and multi-layer monitoring mechanism, and try to see what would be the flow of information on what frequency, etc., etc. So again, what are the main components? for Companies Act. For the policy formulation, I will have to go a little first because we have a lot to cover today. Is governance, program management, implementation strategy, partnership, collaboration strategy, geographic, demographic targeting, sector-wise program and activities. This, according to the Act, these are the elements to be reflected on your policy. Project-wise, budget allocation and budgetary management, review and reporting. Now, I will just go through the next slide, and then when we come back after a small tea break, probably we can get into the partnership management. That will take a little bit of time. As I said, lack of vision in most of the cases. What we do is that very I would say that very short term, very narrow perspective we develop through a policy. So there is no lack of social vision of that particular particular company. Selective hearing, not engaging with listing of all stakeholders, as we have already discussed. Uneven approach. What would be, as I said, that what you are doing is that you have land acquisition in that particular area. But when you are talking about impact zone, the other zones are also being impacted. But as these people are land givers, or you have done the acquisition of land, so what you do is that you entirely focus your program to them, and those are the very powerful elements in the community. Those powerless elements in the community, the tribal peoples and all these people, they actually get deprived of the benefits of your program. Non-participative management, top-down, not harnessing the skill of the employees. One-size-fits-all approach for all issues being addressed. Yeah, maintaining old structures. Failure to view CSI as being part of responsible business. So these are, from our experience, we have seen these are the weaknesses of the policy documents we generally find with different companies. With that, what we'll do is that we'll take 5-minute break. So it is exactly 12. So we'll come back at 5:12 and continue our discussion. Okay, I hope you all are back from the break. Let's start our discussion on partnership. Now, on partnership, it is quite a long presentation I had, so we'll actually go through it very quickly. But this is something really, really important, and you need to understand, as you know that, probably the main success of most of the programs depends on successful and effective partnership. So, the partnership is, again, it's not kind of, when we talk about partnership, there could be different kind of partnership. It's not monolithic that the same kind of relationship we will be having with different NGOs or different kind of institutions. Now, the different degrees of engagement become, let us first try to see that what are the different degrees of engagement. One is that alliance, then we talk about collaboration, we talk about network, and then we talk about partnership. Now, what are the different kind of engagements, different levels of engagements? Let's see. So when we talk about network, we know it's a kind of loose network. We are not in touch, on day-to-day basis. Level of involvement is rather coordination. Interdependence is, not so much. Like it's a kind of Facebook network. It is a LinkedIn network. It could be even virtual, or it is in the real world, whatever the network it is. And as and when it is required, we can connect with that person. We can actually get into an alliance or collaboration or partnership if we have a good network. So a network is a very, very, it is very wide range it has. It is not on day-to-day basis. It is not a joint collective accountability you have, but as and when, if you want to really cash on that, and you can use that network to develop different other kind of other kind of engagements. It might be alliance, it might be collaboration, it might be partnership. Then we talk about alliance. So there are different kind of alliances. Probably know that there are so many different alliances. Like in India, we used to have this Bhavishya Alliance on nutrition. So in that, actually, everybody is, for give that particular example, everybody believes that they want to do something about nutrition, but they don't do it jointly. They don't do it together. Everybody working on the same thing, and they are contributing to the common goal. But it is not that they work together, it is not they collaborate, it is not that they share money, it is not that they have a formal agreement. So that kind of alliance, issue-based alliance, is really, again, this is a really, really important thing to do. Like tomorrow, if you guys, all of the participants, or with some other companies, if you want to do an alliance on education, so that you see that, okay, if you believe that, this is the problem in quality education, the learning level is really low, and these are the broad approaches we all believe. But it is not that we will have to share money, we will have to exchange money, we will have to expertise. But whatever the way we want to do, we were actually working toward that. So we see that, okay, probably nationwide, some 50 companies are working on quality of education. Yeah, that kind of alliance and that kind of impact we can create. So that is what we call an alliance, where we see that level of involvement is cooperation. It is not coordination, it is cooperation. It is interdependent. The interdependence is little higher because actually what we are doing is that we are having a common vision, common goal, common theme to work on. Though our work is not common, work is different. Our approaches might be different to that particular goal. Formal structure, it is more of a cooperation structure, so that there might be, in some cases, there might be a secretariat who will do the coordination and cooperation, will facilitate the cooperation, will align all these partners. There might be a kind of secretariat, but they are not, they might be or might not be the members of that particular secretariat. Yeah. Then you have a defined process. So you have a defined process of communication, or disclosure, and defined process of reporting, that what we are doing and what kind of impact we are creating. So those kind of defined process. There might be little bit of peer exchanges. There might be little bit of peer or cross learning from one partner to another partner. Then we talk about collaboration. The ideal example of collaboration is a government program. What you are doing is that you are participating in a government program, right? There might not be an exchange of money. There might not be a formal agreement with the government. Yeah. But what you are doing is that you are actually working with the local ICDS program. So you are not giving the money to the government. You are constructing by yourself. You are constructing that infrastructure. Sometimes, probably your work is being also subsidized by the government. It might not be even come to your, bank account. In many cases, in most of the cases, these collaborations are not, they don't have a formal agreement. They might have, but in many cases, they might not have a formal agreement. Defined process is little higher, so that it is engagement level wise, it is little higher than the alliance, because it has a common work to do together. It is an ICDS program, an Anganwadi program, both of you are working. It might be that without any exchange of money, it might be without any kind of formal agreement, or it not be kind of contracting. It is not contracting one another. It is more a kind of voluntary engagement together. That is a collaboration. But when you get into partnership, then it is a co-ownership, so that you are accountable to your partner. The partner is accountable to you. So you are answerable. The partners are answerable to each other, right? And they can actually question each other's performance. So that is a kind of co-ownership. You see that in the partnership on equal, more or less equal terms. Then interdependence is very high. Definitely there might be, there would be in most of the cases exchange of money or exchange of expertise or money both. There would be a formal agreement to define those accountability, mutual accountability, and there would be a defined process, so that it is a contractual agreement in most of the cases. So that is what we call partnership. So that when we talk about engaging with different partners, don't think that it has to be only, partnership. It has to be only money to be given to that particular NGO. It might be an alliance, it might be a network, it might be collaboration. When you think about all these kind of engagements, you immediately widen the spectrum of your, engagement. So that, in most of the cases we talk about, when we say explain what would be our partnership policy, in your policy, if you explain, I would like to see that actually you should try all these things, so that you can maximize, maximize and you can leverage on that. So, the engagements should be in different. Now, this is what we see is that, as we discussed, long back, that, what are the different kind of different motivations of CSR activities. It's philanthropic, risk mitigation, strategic, structural. Those are the kind of different motivations for CSR we discussed. Then we see that collaboration levels would actually increase. If you talk about, take two extreme examples, like this philanthropy. If it is a philanthropy, you are giving, somebody comes to you, we are feeding poor people, you are giving a check to them, and they are spending money, probably they spend some photographs or say a report, and then it is over, But it is not that you are supposed to actively engage in that. You have some accountability beyond that check, right? But when you are getting into a, say, structural, CSR, what we talked about, if you remember, or probably let us actually take example of strategic CSR at this point of time, that Shakti Amma project kind of thing, through that you have a marketing, channel, very decentralized marketing channel through women's group, and how do you engage this women's group and create a kind of mutual benefit. So if it is like that, then as they are accountable to you, you are also accountable to them in terms of product, in terms of supply. in terms of pricing, and they are also accountable to you. So they are actually a very, very important element in that partnership. So that once we see that, if it is, your impact level is from, say, philanthropy, risk mitigation, strategic, structural, the collaboration level would be getting more deeper and deeper. Now, what are the attributes of partnership? One is the trust and confidence, that if you, again, from my practical experience, what I'm saying. See, these are the words we always mention when we talk about partnership. But in actual case, what happens is that we really cannot internalize all these, all these terms, all these words, and cannot really translate this into practice. So we always talk about trust and confidentiality, but once we go to an NGO or another corporate or a particular government, the basis of our agreement, the basis of the terms and condition is what? Actually mistrust. So that we always try to protect ourselves, because we have all this suspicion that, this guy might actually cheat me tomorrow. So that all kind of clauses we'll think about, all kind of, restrictions we will think about. So that generally what we do is that and it is not you and me, it is actually, that is what the reality. All the partnerships mostly based on mistrust, be it a vendor, be it the government, be it an NGO, whoever it is. Then accountability, as I spoke, that accountability is mutual accountability. Now, I know a particular big corporate, I can tell you hundreds of cases like that. Sometimes what happens, even the corporate, they act like a funder, and they start dictating terms to that NGO, which might not be so much of aligned to the reality, which might not be for the best interest of the program. Again, many of the NGOs, sometimes what do they do is that they look at the corporate like a funder. So that, what you are trying to do is that you are trying to get money and try to say that, how best you can actually get more money from them. It is not to engage them and be accountable to them. So that what we see is that, it is really, really important. How do we create a common accountability, mutual accountability to each other? And the most important thing, what people don't talk about, and I think that is what will solve a lot of problems, if we can state what is our accountability, be it the NGO, be it the corporate, be it a government, to that particular community, right? If we become accountable to the people we work for, then I see that many of these problems can be solved. The primary accountability toward whom? See, the community has not invited any corporate to work for them. They have not, in most of the cases, invited even the NGOs to work for them. We have approached them. We have said that, okay, this is a problem, we would work for them. Either there might be a compulsion, there might be a different motivation why we are working for them. It might be a compulsion like CSR, the Companies Act. It might be a compulsion for the NGOs for survival, or in many cases for good motivation also. We feel for them, we have that empathy, that is why we work for them. But the fact remains that the community were not actually dependent on you, right, in most of the cases. So that end of the day, what we need to do is that we need to be accountable primarily to the community, nobody else. Yeah. Otherwise, what we are doing is that, we are using the community for different motivations, either good motivations, bad motivation, but in any case, they remain used. The mutual respect, again, as I said, that, it's easy to say, but very difficult to do, to, respect small, big, powerful, weak partners, rich and poor partners. In most of the cases, it depends on fund flow. I respect a corporate partner till the date they give me money. I don't respect them because they don't have stopped giving money. The same way, probably many of the corporates, they think that, as I am giving money, so I am at a higher pedestal, so that, what I say, that should be done. Empathy, easy to say, very, very difficult to do. Most of you understand empathy. It is different than sympathy. It is being, but at the same time, how you can actually put yourself in other shoes and try to understand their situation, and how do you really internalize that? Yeah, that is what it's again, it's a small word, it's a huge quality to develop. Agreed upon realistic mandate and scope. Like empathy, good example is that, we work with many a cases small NGOs as a corporate. Now we tell them that every month, every 2 months, you will have to give this kind of report, that kind of thing. So sometimes we forget that probably this, through our assessment, we have not seen that probably that NGO does not have that capacity to do that. Probably that NGO is good at doing something else. So if we don't understand that, and we don't understand from their view, their perspective, and help them to develop probably that capacity, it would be actually again the same thing. The NGOs sometimes they think that, these guys, they don't understand any program. These guys always ask for reports and numbers, and they don't understand the reality. So again, the NGOs will have to develop that particular empathy to understand that from which perspective the company is saying. But again, as I said, it's the most difficult to quality to develop. And if we all have empathy, then probably the world will not have any problem, right? Agreed upon realistic mandate and scope. Very, very realistic, point this is. Agreed upon realistic mandate and scope. Can we actually really write down all these mandates very, very realistically, and scope of this particular partnership? Now, partner-wise attributes, if you see that, what NGOs bring into partnership, social representation, you can call, sometimes you can question the legitimacy of that, but actually, they have a closer, or a proximate presence with the community than any corporate or anybody else, so that, you can take it. Grassroots presence, social insight, social environmental credibility. In most of the cases, the NGOs, enjoy that credibility, that they are do-gooders, right? So that, and good NGOs have a good brand also, yeah. So that association with a good NGO brings in that brand value. Sustained effort even beyond partnership, the NGOs will remain there in any case. So that, if your CSR project is over or whatever, that NGO will remain there and continue working with that particular community, so that you don't have to, it is not that, especially, sometimes what happens is that for smaller company, because of the market volatility, it might be abruptly that, a project might have to be called off and all these things. So once NGO is there, they can, they act like a buffer there, okay, and they continue their work, in that particular community, and on those issues you have started working on with them. Sustained effort, even resource leveraging. The NGOs can also become the hub of leveraging different resources. So that what they can do is that, as they are taking, say, it's a big education program, what you will have to do, you give, say, 50% of that, they can generate 20% from somebody else, 30% from some other corporate or some other funding agency. So you can create a kind of sizable, they can be the hub to, really mobilize all the supports and create a larger program. What the business brings in, result orientation, definitely that's a different culture. The NGOs, in most of the cases, that culture is not there. Investment, business solution and skills, technical expertise, cultural alignment, these are the things, what the business can bring in. The government brings service delivery system, resource leveraging, legitimacy. You are working with a government program, it brings in a lot of legitimacy. Even, some of the big NGOs, they bring a lot of legitimacy for you. And then definitely government brings a lot of infrastructure also. Now, the challenges, if you see, power imbalance, we all understand there is a power imbalance because, money is the biggest, uh, uh, you know, uh, determinant to really determine the power equation, so that there is a little bit of power imbalance between these partnerships. And we need to understand it is not only corporate, it is about the funding agencies, it is about the government. Whoever gives money, there is a little bit of power imbalance. So we need to understand that, and we'll have to see that as somebody is bringing in money, somebody else is bringing in program expertise. Both are equally important. So that how do we balance those equations? Value versus profit motive. Most of the NGOs, they are driven by value. And as we were saying, that more and more the businesses are also getting value oriented. So can we create that kind of value alignment? Cultural differences, not notional beliefs. There are notional beliefs about the businesses, notional beliefs about the government, about the businesses. Now, many people think the businesses are bad, all exploitative. They make profit, they exploit people. At the same time, many business people think that the NGOs are inefficient. These are the all inefficient people who had nothing to do in other sectors, so they are doing some kind of social work. So those are the kind of perceptions, if you see, and unfortunately there are a lot of wrong perception notions are there. Fund driven, the NGO is interested to talk to you because you have money, and you are also having that kind of attitude that I have money. So the relationship based becomes fund driven. It is not issue based. It is not that we believe in this particular issue so that we are coming together. It is because you have money, you give money, and the whole relationship is money based. Priority mismatch, definitely you can see that, it is quite natural. So we'll have, it's a continuous challenge because the NGOs will have definitely different kind of challenge than the businesses. Low communication skill, especially. And we think that low communication skill is at the NGO level. It is many cases at the corporate level, because communication is not only writing glossy reports, writing very professional narrations, or a particular language skill. It is also how effectively I engage with the other party. So sometimes the NGOs definitely they lack in terms of language, in terms of content, in the way it should be presented. That's a big capacity they need to develop. But on the other hand, sometimes the corporates, they also cannot engage with the NGOs, and that is also a communication gap between them. In business government partnership, power imbalance, bureaucracy, lack of partnership, governance system, cultural differences, mutual suspicion, priority mismatch. These are the common things you probably have been facing. Risk mitigation and on ad hoc basis. Now, business, let us look at that. Business partnership. This is something, another very, very potential area what you need to explore. The biggest problem what happens is that exclusive branding versus co-branding. Who will take the credit? Whose signage will be there? That is a big problem. So that we'll have to see that, how we can actually have kind of agreement between two businesses to see that how we can actually do a kind of co-branding. We can share those credits. Lack of civil society perspective. But if it is restricted within only two businesses, definitely you will lack a civil society organization perspective. Limited scope of grassroots level presence and access. No scope for cross-sectoral networking and partnership if it is only business to business. But there's a huge scope to do business to business, and also then to go for other kind of alliances or other kind of partnership or collaborations with NGOs, with government and other actors. Now let us look at the NGO partnership. It is not only implementing partnership. Through NGO partnership, we can actually do different kind of roles. NGOs could be a knowledge partner. NGOs could be an intermediary partner. It is not only implementing partner. Like CSO partners, my organization is not an implementing partner at all. So we are actually a knowledge partner to many corporate. We are also an intermediary partner to many corporate and NGOs. We are Many NGOs, the straightforward relationship is that, this is your program, who will implement that program, so that they are the implementing agency, and there are social enterprises. So that is little different. I have put it little differently because it is not only they bring in the social enterprises, they bring in new ideas, new innovations, new way of looking at a particular issue. Sometimes they look at a particular situation through a very different lens, and in some cases, the social entrepreneurs might have a business model, so that, or it might have a grant-based model, or it might have a mixed model. Now, what are the stages of partnership development? Partnering need assessment. These are the things, again, sometimes we think, what is the need? There is an NGO, just talk to that NGO and you just have a kind of relationship with them, give some money and let them the work done. But then what, it helps us to do this at a later stage. If you don't want to get into really trouble, then you should have a kind of partnering need assessment, scoping mandate, that why do you need a partner? What kind of scope and mandate of that partnership? Identification of potential partners, then you will have to do a partner assessment, formulating terms and commitments, formalizing and institutionalizing that partnership, agreement, project execution, partnership management, that is what it is, a continuous process. Project progress review and partnership review. So as you are doing a program review, sometimes, and it is also important to do a partnership review. And what I would say, that when you are actually developing the scope and mandating, at that same time, you will have to see that what would be the phase out plan from this partnership. I will not get into these things too much. Actually, these these graphics are to see that a different perspective of the partners and the funders, NGOs and the funders. So in this case, for example, what they're saying is that in current impact creation and communication level continue. Generally the communication level is very bad between the NGOs and from NGOs to the funders. So if it continues, then if you can see that left hand side, that increase of fund would be smaller than the maintain or decrease of fund. It will grow by 26% if the communication can be improved. So that communication is a big vehicle. It's a very, very important factor between the corporate and the NGOs. So let us go quickly to something really important, is partnership assessment. Now, how do we assess the partners? What are the major elements? First of all, see, partnership assessment, it's a lengthy process and it's a very detailed process. So, in most of the cases, it's a specialized job. If you really, the best way, what I think is that to take help of an expert third-party organization. That gives you the neutrality of viewpoint and a very, very objective viewpoint. And also, you can say always that a third-party organization has done the assessment, and based on that, actually, based on those recommendations, we are getting into this partnership. Now, what are the main elements what we look at when we try to assess a partner? Organizational credibility, at community level, donor and peer level. So credibility, in most of the cases, it's a kind of perception of people about that particular organization, that this is a good organization, this is a bad organization, this organization is not so fair probably. Yeah. So what we do is that in most of the cases, at the donor and peer level, what kind of perspective they have about that particular organization. I think in most of the cases, in this case, actually the third-party accreditation might help you to do that. Then that's the overall, as an impression of that organization. How do you capture? Then we get into more details. We try to see that what is the governance elements in that particular organization. We like to see the vision, mission, alignment of their vision, mission, and right now what they are doing. Yeah. We are not to say that this is the right vision and this is the wrong mission for you. They are the best people to decide whether, what should be their vision and mission. But what we need to see is that what you are talking about in vision and mission statement, is that you are doing or not? What is the value of that organization, value system, ideology that organization? No, ideology, like, many organizations, they think that, okay, activism will probably bring in changes, or probably some of the organization might say that, policy influencing is the best way of doing that. So what kind of ideology, they have? The structure, governance structure of that organization, what is the kind of, is there any board of directors, or is there any governing body and general body? Definitely, you'll have to look at that under what act it is registered, and it is not only to see that what is the structure, but then see that who are there in that particular committee, for how long they are there. Probably they are there for the donkey's years, and is there any kind of relationship between them? Is that a family constitute the governing body, the founder's family? So that gives you a fair amount of impression of the organization, that how the organization is being governed and how their performance would be. Now, what is the governance process? Whether they do have a defined cycle of board meeting, what kind of reporting mechanism they have, and what are the policies they have, right? If they have a kind of finance policy, if they have a HR policy, if they have a program policy, if they have a partnership policy. For an NGO, those are the important policies. Then there would be child protection policy in case of organizations who are working with children. Is there any sexual harassment policy? What kind of operational policy they have? So whether they have defined policies on one hand. Second thing is that whether there is an evidence of using those policies at application level. Organizational capacity in terms of human resource, network and collaboration, that's really important. Like, for my organization, CSO Partners, we have a very small team. But if you look at our network and collaborations, then you see that is the main strength of our organization. So it is not only human resource, we'll have to look at the network and collaboration structure of that particular organization. What are kind of communication structure or the communication process within that organization? Systems, process, scale of that particular organization. At what scale do they work? It is national level, block level, district level, state level, whatever it is. And what is the sustainability of that particular organization? In terms of sustainability, we'll have to look at the structure. That if you withdraw your project someday, if you phase out, eventually you'll have to do from all the projects, you'll have to phase out. After that, whether the organization has the capacity to sustain their work or sustain themselves, that you need to look at. Partners assessment, again, what are the next elements you'll have to look at? Financial management, financial health, budgetary planning and management, accounting, asset management, internal control, reporting, grant management system. See, again, grant management system is very different than financial management, general accounting. So you'll have to see that if a particular NGO is having multiple grants, they have different kind of, terms and conditions, different purpose of those grants. How do they manage all these grants? And, then how do they really create alignment, all these different grant conditions to their program? So that's a huge, capacity the NGO should have in terms of financial management. Procurement system, legal compliances. In terms of program management, you'll have to see existing programs and performance. Definitely, when you are going to an NGO, how do you understand they are good NGO or bad NGO? They might be having excellent finances, excellent governance, but end of the day, you'll have to see that what they're doing in terms of program. You look at the existing programs and their performances, what kind of program planning system they have, what kind of monitoring and evaluation system they have, reporting and feedback mechanism they have, and partnership management if they have or not. And the last but not the least, we'll have to see marketing and fundraising. Marketing strategies and media, fundraising strategies, fundraising cost effectiveness, major donors, donor management system. Because, it is important to understand that what kind of financial viability of this particular organization and from whom they are getting fund. It is also very, very important to understand. Say, if you are, I mean, it's little different, but it is also important aspect to understand that if you are actually funding an education program, you are collaborating with an NGO for an education program, and it might be multi-donor funded program. So you need to understand who are those donors, how much money they are doing, for what are the components they are doing. Those are the things. Another thing is that, in terms of fundraising, how much money this particular organization is spending, fundraising and marketing. Is that an effective way of really raising fund or not? Whether this, it's a viable option for this particular organization or not. I know few of the organizations, they spend more to raise less fund. Now, let us quickly look at the basic elements. I would say that, these elements must be included in a particular agreement, partnership agreement. What are those? Scope and purpose, validity of the agreement, project objectives, so that, at a later stage, there is no confusion, no ambiguity about the relationship. Roles and responsibilities, what are the sub-grantees, subcontractor, whether, you agree to have a sub-grantee or subcontractor so that NGO can in turn engage somebody else to do that. What kind of exclusivity, whether you are the only partner, whether that NGO is the only partner, you can actually, or some other party can do that, whether for that same program can be done with other parties also, what is the time frame, what are the deliverables, total budget, terms of payment, confidentiality, intellectual, like, one particular company told me that, these are the issues I have faced, that I cannot disclose the name of that particular company for a particular initiative. Now, for my organization, ideologically, we will actually disclose whoever my funder is. Why should I actually, suppress the fact that a particular company is giving money to me? So you'll have to see it is confidential. It's not about only the information about program and this and that. There are bigger issues also. So how much transparency you can bring in to the partnership and to the external world also about your partnership, about your relationship with that particular organization. Intellectual property rights and copyrights. One particular NGO, for example, they developed a software for a particular corporate CSR program. Now, who gets that software after that project? If the company gets that copyright, there is no use. Probably the company might not use it ever. If the NGO is getting that, in this particular one case, what I saw, that the NGO got that copyright. It's probably the corporate thought that, okay, what to do with that, so that give the copyright to them. But the NGO didn't allow that particular funding corporate to use it anywhere else. So, we'll have to see that how to really resolve all these cases. Termination of the contract, monitoring and coordination, indemnity, maintenance of records and documents, rights to advertisement and promote, and definitely, force majeure. Now, partnership, something like that, I used to say that, it's like a marriage between two persons, right? So it does not happen like that. Once, they are married and, they will have a happy life together. It's not like that. It's on day-to-day basis, you will have to really manage it, right? So what are the management options? We see that, centralized management, decentralized management, and management by mandate. Without getting into all these materials would be there, please look at that, whenever you get time. But, briefly what happens is that when you develop a partnership, I would say that from my experience, it's better to develop a structure of managing and reviewing and managing the partnership. It might be, you have one person from the partner NGO or partner company, one person from the other partner, and then develop a kind of committee and see that what would be the terms and conditions of the committee and what are the things they will look at. So when they will say that, okay, there is a kind of, if there is a problem in the partnership, some non-performance case or some kind of, case, some kind of thing happened in terms of accountability, then, what kind of, how do they manage that situation? Otherwise, it would be a kind of very unhappy marriage to continue with. So that is the kind of situation we might get into. So that we see that, again, partnership management is something, partnership selection and management. This is like, again, as I said, that it's like a good marriage. Like, it's important to get the right kind of partner, and it is important to manage that relationship lifelong. Otherwise, it does not work out. So, one of the most important factor of, program success is getting a right partner. Now let me look at the questions first, and then very quickly I might get into the budget part. Sorry. Okay, there is not much of question. Only Mr. Navneet Shetty is saying that because of bad network, he could not actually hear the recommendations, what we discussed in the beginning. So he wants to actually. So I'll ask my colleagues to forward that to you. Now, budgetary planning, as we have a few minutes, I will try to very quickly go through that. We know what budgetary planning is. The principles. We always say, this is again, this is not a theoretical text, but this is something based on the practical experiences what we gain. Be conservative, not optimistic. So that, if you are developing, see, one main thing, again, I will have to remind about budgetary planning, that if you are, say, having 100 rupees, in 100 rupees, you can develop 3 programs, 33 rupees each. And you can develop one program for 3 years. Per year budget is 33 rupees. I would prefer the second option, to develop one program and reserve that fund for 3 years, so that the whole the entire project cycle can be covered. In the Companies Act, there is nowhere written that you cannot carry over money. You can carry over money. You'll have to explain why you are carrying over. If you can give a proper explanation, I think there is no problem in giving that explanation, and that's a good explanation to give, that we don't want to really get into uncertainty, because in next year whether we can continue this project or not in this particular plan, with this particular plan or not. So that is why we are reserving this money to complete for the entire life cycle of this project. Next year, if you get another 100 rupees, get another education program probably for next 3 years, yeah, and reserve that budget. So I would say that if I were in your position, if I develop a budget, I would get into that kind of project cycle budgetary planning. I'll not get into, and then break it down into annual budget. I will not get into annual budget, year-wise budgets. So be conservative, not optimistic. In that term also be little conservative, because you never know what will happen tomorrow. You might not be in the company, somebody else might not be in the company, financial condition might change of the company. So that be little conservative, take all precautions, and also being, spending money. You'll have to be little more realistic than optimistic, right? Like in most of the cases, what we do is that, because the budgets are not realistic, we spend the highest amount of money in the 4th quarter. Teamwork and consultation, again, as I always believe that it is a teamwork. A good leader does not take decision, of his or her own. It is probably, how they can engage the whole team and capacitate all the stakeholders to actually contribute in that process. That is what a good leader is. Allow plenty of time. Excellence in documentation gets signed off. Now, what are the different kind of budget in social sector? At least what we do is that we do a kind of line item wise budget. So that last year there are 5 line items. There is to each line items was say had some allocated money. Total budget was 100 rupees. Sometimes we copy paste the same budget for the next. So the 3 years the same budget we are continuing. And sometimes what we do is that add little bit of to neutralize inflation. 5%, 6%. And add little bit or delete something here and there, and then continue with the same kind of budget. But as you can understand, these line item budgets in terms of program, social development program, which is a progressive process, is not the right thing to do probably. Then every year should have, there would be some common elements, there would be definitely some common elements, but there would be many which are not common elements in the budget. So looking at a budget, see, if you give me a proposal, to assess that proposal whether it's a good proposal or bad proposal, I will actually look at 2 things first. One, the logical framework. As I said, that objective framework and problem analysis, that's actually a format should be presented. That's probably a page or 2. And I look at the budget. Then if I am convinced looking at these 2, then I will get into the text and all. But these are 2 very, very important documents, important planning. If these are right, then you understand that the program is actually going to be a good program. If I see that no, this is a kind of line item budget, year by year actually they are carrying over, copying, pasting the same kind of budget with little bit of changes here and there, you understand that actually they don't have the right kind of planning and projection. Zero-based budget, where you are starting a new project, there was no precedence, So I would say that, every year there should be a kind of, mix of all these 3. The next budget, let me first discuss that performance-based budgeting. That what happened last year, what didn't happen last year. Based on that, what would be this year's budget, what should be carried over, what extra should be done, what added, elements to be there. So we are performance-based budgeting. So what I would say that it should be always a kind of, the first year definitely you will have to have a zero-based budgeting, so that, for 3 years definitely you don't have a performance, this is the first year, so definitely you will have to go for a zero-based budgeting, so that, it's entirely a projection. But next year and onwards, definitely you will have little bit of budget revision. If it is a live project, definitely, you cannot really follow the same budget year after year. So there would be a proposed budget and there would be an actual budget, which is actually defined based on the performance of the last year. And also more understanding you are gathering while implementing the program, there would be a little bit of changes here and there. But, sometimes what we do, we know these uncertainty elements there would be in the program. So what we do is that when we are signing that agreement, when we are actually signing or the board is signing on the budget, we keep a kind of 10% flexibility for each line item. Say that either the program manager or the NGO or the CSR manager have that flexibility to change 10% for each line item. So that give you a little bit of flexibility to play around the budget. Otherwise also every year I would say that based on the performance of last year, the budget should be refined and revised. But in most of the cases in social development sector and also CSR programs, I see it's all copy-paste job. Now, these are the budget components, as you know this. I don't want to get into this. So another important aspect, before I complete, I would like to discuss about the confusion between administrative expenditure, program expenditure, capital expenditure, revenue expenditure. These are, capital and revenue expenditure. But the main confusion happens between the administrative or overhead and program expenditure. Now, say for example, if you have an education program and you are giving salary to the teachers, and that's a recurring cost, so that annually probably that would be a huge cost, right? It's say 10 teachers giving some amount of money on monthly basis, so recurring cost would be huge, so that annual cost is very big. Now, is that salary is an administrative cost or a program cost? Many people think that it's a salary, it should be administrative cost and all. So what I would say that actually this is a program cost, because in many cases what happens if you are not doing infrastructure program, this is a service delivery, and in most of the service delivery programs, the salaries might get into the program expenditure. So that be very, very careful that what exactly you are talking about, administrative expenditure and program expenditure. Sometimes we think that this is a very, heavy overhead, budget we have, and this is not a good budget. But you'll have to see exactly what are the program expenses and then what are the administrative expenses. Like even for say your CSR manager, even for somebody who is working in the office, how much time this particular person is spending for the program and how much time that particular person is spending for administration and overhead, overall things. That you will have to split and see that what is the, so, and accordingly you will have to charge. So that if I say that if as a CEO of this particular organization, my salary is a program expense or an administrative expense, I definitely do a lot of things which is not program. Yeah. But I do a lot of things which is directly program. Like if I am taking these sessions, this is a direct program delivery I am doing. Yeah. Even if I don't do that, if I go for some monitoring, if I go for some program review, that is also a program cost. So that you will have to see that how my salary should be splitted and charged, by the estimated time I spent for different things. So this is one element I would say, that be very clear what are the program expenses. Then only we can understand by program budgetary analysis whether the program is feasible or not. And the third thing, you need to understand for the NGOs, though in our legal system we have both payment receipt and income expenditure statement what we need to generate. But for an NGO, in most of the cases, I mean, if you go ideally by accounting principle, it is all payment receipt, because there is no income for the NGO. I mean, if it is not an income generating organization, they have some surplus, they are not generating any surplus, because what do they do is that they receive on one hand and they pay on the other hand. They receive even the pay for the salaries for a particular program. So the organization itself not really earning any income. So ideally, it is a kind of payment and receipt, statement. Though the practice is different, that people make payment as a receipt and also income and expenditure. So I would say that I would end this session with three suggestions. One, first of all, go for life cycle budgeting. Two, go for performance-based budgeting. And three is that, first of all, identify what are the program expenses. If it is, and don't please straightforward, just charge all salaries and everything in the administrative cost. So that what we see that 18 to 20% is good overhead administration cost for a program. But if you start charging everything in the administrative cost and or salary, or otherwise you charge all salaries in the program, that definitely will look like a bad program. And budget is one sheet of paper which actually reflects on the program planning. So that as I said, that if I pick up, try to understand a proposal, two things I will actually look at. One, the log frame. The second thing is the budget sheet. Now with that, I will end today. It's already over 11, over 1, so that we might not have much time to continue with. I again please, request you to please submit your topics for your projects, and feel free to write to me. I will get back to you definitely, and we'll accordingly actually get back to you. Next week we don't have the session, so on mail we'll get back to you about the plan, how to carry out all the exercises, and how would we really interact and do the consultation for those exercises. Thank you so much.